Hey there, and welcome to Swimming with Sharks, a deep dive into customer ops. I'm your host, Kevin Dean, CEO of Manobyte, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for this exciting journey through the dynamic world of customer operations. On this podcast, we're going to explore strategies, tools, and innovations that drive exceptional customer experiences. And this week, I am super excited to have my friend Aaron Jones, Head of Strategic Partnerships at Maven AGI, joining us for a really fun conversation. Aaron, great to have you on the show today.
Kevin, it is my pleasure to be here joining you and looking forward to a great conversation.
For sure, for sure. Now, Aaron, you and me, we go back a little bit from your time at HubSpot, but the audience may not know a ton about you. So, can you give them a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Yeah, absolutely happy to. So I was a computer science major in college. I started my career as a developer and did all kinds of geeky things. I like
Mhm.
to affectionately refer to myself as a recovering geek. Um, but things have advanced so far, and I've seen so many incredible engineers now that like my days of writing code are like so far in the past. But it was a good way to get started, and I took that experience and leveraged that to move into data science. And me and another gentleman founded what ultimately became the data science program for the Discovery Channel, and ran that for a while, and from there joined Adobe, which is what got me from sort of the in-house side to the vendor side of the house. And that was my
Okay.
first foray into the SaaS world. And then from Adobe, there was Mixpanel, Sprinkler, Discovery Education, HubSpot, a few other spots along the way. And and that all led me over to Maven AGI, which I could not be more excited to be in this exciting space.
Oh, yeah, I am super excited to learn more about that. I did not actually realize that your degree was in computer information science. That's the same as me. That's how I started as well. I didn't realize that. Yeah, so data geek from way back. But yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, like I've got other people who do that for us now. Don't put me in front of a computer.
Right.
But things are changing so fast. I mean, wow. I mean, I think about the time probably when you and I were going back doing all of this stuff and to where we are today. Man, what a difference, right?
Oh, it is crazy. I remember when JavaScript was invented, and I actually was pretty good at JavaScript once upon a time. But like things have just moved so fast, and just like the world is just so different from the time when I was building systems and writing code. But
Yeah, it's completely different. Now, you and I probably remember the internet bubble.
oh yeah.
We remember the internet bubble. Let me ask you this. Um, Do you think what we're seeing right now with AI is similar to the internet bubble? Yes or no? If why or why not?
Now, that's a great question, and I would love to give you a yes or a no, but I'm gonna nuance it a little bit.
Okay, all right.
I think there are similarities between the two, but I don't think that they're necessarily similar. But
Okay,
there are
okay.
similarities. And what I mean by that is back in the 90s, the internet was like this new, exciting thing. And if you were on the internet, that meant that you were a successful business. But during that time, as we both lived through, there were many businesses that didn't have a business plan. Like they didn't have a product. They weren't really doing anything. They were just, you know, an entity or a presence on the internet. And that's not a business, right? And a lot
Right.
of those companies washed out when the bubble burst. Today, there are lots of people in the AI space, and there are many practical applications. I think the similarities is that I think that from my perspective, is there are many companies that are in AI, but that's not their core competency and that's not what their business is. They
Mhm.
understand that it's it is here and it's not going anywhere. It's going to continue to evolve and get better. And I think that that's where the similarity is. I think there are a lot of people throwing resources at AI, but not necessarily strategically. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean that with all due respect,
Of course, of
but I
course.
think that it's like there are a lot of companies that are getting into it, but that's not what they do.
Right.
And ultimately, focusing on core competencies is going to drive success for everyone.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. And I appreciate those nuances. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot of is that anybody who knows how to put in a prompt into Chat GPT is now an AI consultant.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But there are real challenges that are out there, especially in the world of customer operations, that Gen AI and AI can solve. What are some of the big challenges that you see out there today that are facing companies as they're trying to really deliver great customer experiences?
So I think that there are sort of three prongs to the challenges that are out there. Customer expectations are continually increasing, right? Tolerance for inefficiency or patience for not getting to, that thing that you need as a customer, like that tolerance is decreasing as in expectations are increasing.
Mhm.
And then the third piece is there are just limited resources. Like humans can only scale so far, and human capital can only do so much. And the challenge is how do you balance human capital, human resources, and technology the right way so that we can meet those increasing expectations quickly? Because again, that tolerance for inefficiency or for waiting to get to an answer or to be being handed off multiple times before getting to like a final solution or resolution, um, it's tough. But I think that it's like threading three needles at once.
Mm. Yeah, that is tricky.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you think there's a fourth needle that really is around understanding of what's available to companies and what resources are, and just having knowledge? Is that another needle that you think might be needing to be threaded as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's there are so many ways to address customer challenges, and so what's best for your business and what's best for your customers, and like sort of what's the right recipe to
Hmm.
deliver that great customer experience that's efficient, that's fast, and it gets customers the solutions that they need, not just responses but the actual solutions, and also it's a good experience, that they're not being handed off multiple times, that they're not having to repeat themselves, or sort of when once they get to that next rep or that next person, they have to start at the beginning and explain everything all over again. Like that's like these are the challenges, but what's right for your business and what's right for your customers may be a little bit different depending on your industry.
That's a great way to think about it. And you've led large customer service customer organizations in the past. Um, do you think that there's a framework for organizations to kind of look at how to start strategically thinking about what they need to do to meet those needs?
Absolutely. And there is a framework that I think is um I'm not going to say it's universally applicable, but it applies to most businesses and most install bases. It's like there are oftentimes the 80/20 rule, where
Okay.
80% of the questions come from 20% of the scenarios, right? And then understanding of those things, when are humans absolutely necessary? And where can automation, or like now everyone is looking at, rightfully so, when can AI play a part, or when can customer self-service?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like really having a clear understanding as to what those breakdowns are and how to segment out those things, and then how to like really efficiently route customers to the appropriate channel. So if it's something that they can easily self-service, let's make sure that it's easy for them to self-service. If it's something that there's a UI where AI can help them out, whether it's, directly through like an AI powered search or like a co-pilot that's assisting a person,
Mhm.
that's easy to get to. And then also, if it's something that, no, this is just so complex or nuanced that we need to get a human resource involved, that getting to that right resource is something that's easy for the customer.
Well, that's a nice framework to think about. So, included in that framework, you mentioned it. There's a lot of technology plays. How do customers go about evaluating what's the best technology fit for them and their needs? How would they go about doing that?
Um, Great question. And this is where I always come back to like core competency.
Okay.
Um, there are customers or there are offerings and opportunities for just about everything. And there are some shops that sort of start to expand and reach into many areas. And there are jacks of all trades and masters of few. And then there are some folks that are very highly specialized. And I think that uh, having an opinion, having a strong opinion on how you want to go about solving for the customer experience is important.
Okay.
And for me, and a philosophy that I hold is like I prefer to go with best in breed for whatever it is that I am, I need a solution for. And so for customer support, um, I would think about like who do I believe is best in breed for solving for customer support. And if it's something else, like what is the best solution for it? And if there are clear leaders in the space, or if there are leaders that are defining a space, like let's look into that and let's make sure that we're sort of future proofing the way we're taking approach for solving for the customer experience.
Yeah, that's great. I like that a lot. That's a good approach. I think that best in breed is really a good way to go, especially um, you know, it's funny. You can buy one really nice pair of shoes, or you can buy 10 pair of cheap shoes. All right.
Kevin, it's funny that that's the analogy that you use because uh, God bless her soul, my grandmother used to always tell me that. She's like, Aaron,
Oh,
never,
funny.
ever, ever buy cheap shoes because they will wear out, they won't be comfortable, and you're just going to get a new pair. Spend the money, get high quality,
Mm,
and it will last you much, much longer, and it'll actually be more comfortable to wear. It's literally like the perfect analogy.
yeah, yeah. It's so true. It's so true. So let me ask you this. Let's talk a little bit about how Gen AI is solving for customer problems. Can you give me some real life examples of how Gen AI is really solving for customer problems? Yeah, I don't want to hear about, generating a pretty image or,
Yeah.
writing up my email. Give me some real examples of how this is being done today.
You know, this is why I've actually joined Maven AGI, is because of what they're doing and how they're leveraging generative AI, specifically for customer support. Um, I'll give you actually a real life example. There's a customer, TripAdvisor, that's using Maven AGI. And TripAdvisor's been around for a while. They've got a
Mhm.
massive network. They've been helping people figure out their travel plans, make recommendations, book hotels, restaurants, the whole gamut for years, decades probably. Um, since leveraging Maven AGI in training the model, um, I think I've got this right, but I believe that they're deflecting over 90% of their inbound, like
Wow. Wow.
successfully deflecting over 90% of their inbound customer support cases. So
Wow.
that's pretty powerful. Like that's really, really significant. Um, I am just like blown away by when executed and implemented correctly, how incredibly powerful generative AI can be. But like those are two pretty big caveats when, implemented correctly and well executed. Like that's like you can't take those things for granted. Like you've got to get it right. Um, it's as good as it's trained,
Yes.
and it's not magic. And I think that that's something like is awesome and is much potential as AI, particularly Gen AI, has. It's not magic. There is it's as much art as it is science, and making sure that it's set up correctly to deliver those types of results. And it's I'll do a shameless plug, but that's one of the things that Maven AGI is really sort of focused on is quality. Zero hallucinations,
Yep.
and making sure that the customers um, are empowered to see if there is an area that needs to be improved upon, that is presented to the customer so that it can easily be corrected, so that in the future it won't be a question anymore.
I love that. So I'm going to ask you this first question so I can ask you the second question.
All right.
So there are a lot of people who don't understand what training an AI model means. Can you give me a high level overview of what it means to train a model?
Absolutely. To train a model means giving it the appropriate and accurate information to handle prompts or inputs. I'll give an example. ChatGPT was the first sort of like publicly available commercial application of generative AI. ChatGPT is great. It really is. However, it basically learned the entire internet just
Hmm.
directionally, right? Like it just sort of sucked in everything. Some of the things that it was trained on, that it learned on, um, were not necessarily accurate.
Hmm. Or out of
Therefore,
context.
exactly, or it's out of context. And when that occurs, there's something that's called hallucinations that can be output, and it sounds right, but the information that the language model learned was either taken out of context or it was inaccurate, and therefore the response that's given is not it's not solid. And so it's important that when you train a language model that it's got accurate, current, contextualized information, so that way, when it's prompted, it will give the correct answers. And there will be times, I mean, it's part of the process because training a model isn't one and done. You will train it today, but then your product or services will evolve over time. So it has to be updated and retrained. And it's gonna be a new business process is the way I
Mhm.
think about it. It's part of like the support and maintenance, so that you can maintain those sort of efficiencies that you gain by having this thing available that can handle incoming requests. But it's only going to be as effective as it's trained. So the old, I'm sure you remember from back in our coding days, there's garbage in, garbage out,
Yep.
right? If you train it on good information, you will get great responses. If the information becomes either stale or outdated, then the responses will be based on that information that is now
Mhm.
stale and outdated.
Yeah, that's powerful. So, you know, A while ago, we used to hear this a lot that data is king.
Yeah.
Has data become king again?
Data is king in a different kind of way. I think it's like a more powerful king
Okay.
because
Okay.
um when back in the days when I founded the data science program at Discovery, or co-founded it, um, we had to sort of take data, process it, create insights, and then push those insights out to business owners, to general managers and VPs of the different business lines. And that worked for a couple decades. But as things have evolved, you know, people want to self-service. People want to be able to get to the insights that they want. And once they get that insights, they're going to want to dig further and
Mhm.
get additional insights. And that's one of the things that makes AI and generative AI so powerful, is that you can continually sort of prompt and enhance the prompts and ask additional prompts and get back feedback. So the data that these models are trained on that provide those responses has never been more powerful or important.
Yeah. So, we work with several, large organizations, billion dollars in revenue plus. Um, and a lot of these organizations still have disconnected data systems. How important is it for organizations to really start thinking about, one, ensuring they've got all their data connected, and two, throwing this out there, trying to make sure everything's in the cloud?
I love this question. So, folks that have worked with me have heard me say many, many times, data without context is trivia. And it is. You need context. So, often data exists in silos.
Mm-hmm.
Those silos, when joined together, provide context for each of those data points or for all of those insights. And contextualized data is what's actionable.
Mm,
Data that's just on its own, just sort of siloed and without context, again, to me, it's just trivia.
mm,
It's not really meaningful and it's absolutely not actionable. So, interconnecting as many data sources as possible, making that available sort of in some type of cloud infrastructure so that it's available to any of the applications that may need it, or to help train these language models. Like that's where things are today. And if you are not there today, it's probably a good idea to get there as quickly as possible so you don't fall behind.
yeah, I think that that's so important. That's super helpful. Wow, this has been so helpful. So let me ask you this: if you were to share with our listeners, what one thing that you think is critical for them to go and do today, what would that one thing be for them to go and do?
So, shout out to Manobyte, HubSpot Elite Partner. Amazing work that you do with your install base. If I'm speaking to the customers with whom you're working, I would say have a very clear uh, data strategy and understand where all your data sits today, and just have like an honest conversation about whether or not it's really sort of joined in a way that it can provide actionable insights. That's the first thing. And then really think about how to leverage your human capital most effectively and efficiency for what they do best, and then really just have like an honest conversation about like what can be automated. The elephant in the room that we actually haven't talked about yet is like there's like a little bit of fear and
Mm,
hesitation around AI. It's like, is it going to take over the world? Is it coming from my job, etc.? And once upon a time, there were folks that were in the horseshoe manufacturing business and they made saddles,
Yep.
right? And there were leaders in that space. And then automobiles came along and it created an entirely new industry. So as you're thinking about how to deploy your capital, your human capital, and where it's going to be most effective and efficient, that's great. Don't be afraid of automation. It will shift the way things work. But in doing so, it's going to create additional opportunities. We touched on it earlier. These models, they're not magic. They have to be cared for, they have to be tuned. Um, the models have to be trained and then retrained and then kept current. These are functions that have not existed prior.
Mm-hmm.
So there are new job opportunities. There are things that will make, when you embrace AI, um, you will become a much more valuable resource to your business and to your customers because it can do things at a scale that people just can't do.
That's great advice. Great advice. And I appreciate this. Man, this has been nice geeking out with you a little bit today. Before I let you go, I just want to chat with you about two other things, kind of off the geek topic. So, when you're not working hard, what types of things do you like to do?
Great question. I love to eat, Kevin.
Oh,
I'm not
cool.
kidding. I love food. Um, all cuisines. I skew a little bit more towards seafood, but I
Mm,
like everything. Like I like a great steak as much as anyone. Um, but seafood is something that I eat a lot of. I'm really, really into fitness. I love riding, cycling. I like doing strength training. I do generally about one half marathon every year, preferably in a place that I've never visited before. I've got a friend that we sort of schedule these things out a year in advance, and we'll just travel someplace and do a half marathon. It's a way to try to keep fit as father time, starts
yep,
to catch
yep,
up with all of us.
yep, yep.
But yeah, that's how I like to spend the time when I'm not helping customers or working.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Now, a lot of people know, and you know that I love music. Uh, hit me with one song that you think I need to go and listen to today.
Ooh, oh, that's a great one. So I'm gonna do a throwback because I love music also, but I'm a little more old school. And just recently, I was listening to the old classic "Reasons" from Earth, Wind, and Fire. And like
Oh,
that's just a happy
that,
song. It just makes
yeah,
me feel good.
yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. Don't ask me to sing it. I'm gonna go and listen to it
No,
after this show. but but that's a great one. Aaron, it has been awesome talking to you. Great insights. Appreciate it, and I'm sure that we'll connect again soon.
Kevin, it's always a pleasure. Looking forward to talking to you the next time.
All right, take care now.
Take care. You too. Bye.